The United States Supreme Court has rejected President Joe Biden's $400 billion plan to cancel or reduce student loan debts for millions of Americans. And the US State Department's long-awaited Afghanistan After Action Review report has been released, finding decisions to pull all US troops from Afghanistan has had detrimental consequences. Joining us live now is political analyst from Curtin University, Professor Joseph Siracusa. Joe, great to be with you this afternoon. First, let's start with the student loan story. It's certainly a political setback for President Joe Biden, who doesn't agree with the Supreme Court.
Good afternoon, Gabriella. Oh, that's an understatement. The Supreme Court has struck down the president's ability to forgive this debt. He's made a promise to 40 million Americans. These are people who were former students who own a lot of money, and some of them have debt collectors at the door. And President promised them things in 2020 and again in 2022. And these are the followers of Bernie Sanders. And they are very, very angry, Gabriella, because the president was not able to deliver. So now he's going to have to think of something else. But look, he's had a very bad week with the Supreme Court. On Thursday, the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action. That's the last vestige of the racially themed admissions programs at American universities and colleges. And this may even start to flow through to the workplace with affirmative action. Who knows? And so there's going to be a big rethink there. And a couple of days ago, the president said the Supreme Court is not normal. Well, on Friday, by striking down his ability to forgive debt, he said they are wrong. So they've gone from not quite normal to wrong. And what, of course, it's political dynamite, because these people, frankly, they're mad as hell, and they're coming after the president. And this is an era in which Americans are, they can talk about the economy to the blue in the face. Inflation's up there, the cost of living's up there, and they find out that the debt they had been forgiven for or had a grace period of a year because of COVID is now coming for them in September. And they're very uncomfortable about it. And as I say, when these people get angry, they're coming for it. Now, the other thing, too, here, Gabrielle, is 87% of Americans don't have a university debt because they didn't go to college or university. And so they say to themselves, why the hell should I pay for the 13% who had an opportunity we don't have? So in this way, the Supreme Court is not going to actually have a rebellion. No one's going to throw rocks at them, because the majority of Americans, even according to Pew Research, agree that this is about right for Americans who pay their bills. So we have a very fractured political base here. And of course, these people made all the difference for the president in 2020 and 2022, and he's made promises now that he cannot keep. And Americans are just like Australians. They remember promises on General Election Day.
On another topic, another story that's just come out in the past few hours, the Afghanistan After Action Review report has been released. Can you go through with us some of those key findings and just how damning is it?
Oh, yes, it's pretty damning. Gabriella, I have been a student of foreign policy since I graduated at university in 1971, and I've seen every disaster. I've studied them. I've written about all of them, beginning with the Vietnam War and all the other things in Iraq and other places. This is right up there with the failure in Vietnam and the failure in Iraq, and this failure in Afghanistan is a spectacular debacle, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, shows that the president is incompetent as commander-in-chief. Not all of them are very good commanders-in-chief. They may have other strengths. So he botched it on the day. His State Department botched it on the day. And of course, when a president makes mistakes, people get killed. That's why, I'm very careful about what I have to say about a president. If they're incompetent, they'll get you killed. But more than that, he sent an important signal to America's enemies, North Korea, Iran, Russia, and communist China. And what it says to these people is, you can do what you want because we're pretty incompetent about coming back at you. 13 people died, hundreds of people were injured. And of course, Gabriella, a number of Americans and American supporters, these are the interpreters and the translators and all the rest of it, were left behind. And I got to tell you something. I was very sad on that day, not just because it was botched. Americans on that day turned their back on 20 million Afghan women and girls and returned them to the 7th century and all the barbarism of Sharia law. All these tears that American State Department has for people around the world who are suffering from freedom, lack of freedom. America turned its back on 20 million young women and children without thinking twice. And I think that's frankly unforgivable in my books. It's not only ethically wrong, morally wrong, it was just damn wrong, but it sent the wrong signal. I like to point to people that Osama bin Laden got a lot of courage one day, he said in an interview, after he watched the Americans do nothing after the helicopter went down in Somalia. And I believe that's where it was. And when he saw that there was no price to pay for dragging an American's dead body through the streets, he said, well, maybe we can get away with this. So these things send the wrong signals to the wrong people. And then at the end of the day, we try to have to explain what's going wrong. What's going wrong is that if we're not doing it correctly at the beginning of administration, people take advantage of you and beat you up. So I think Biden is headed for the dust heap in first Tuesday, November 2024, because he's lost his what I call the balance of power in the Democratic Party. And Bernie Sanders and AOC and all the rest of them have now had a gutful of Joseph Biden.
Professor Joseph Siracusa, appreciate your insight and analysis this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.